Welcome to Life Chapters Money Choices, the podcast where we travel through life's big transitions. And I think that's appropriate today because I'm joined, along with my co-host Kim Potgieter, by someone who has made travel very central to her life. And so much of modern life seems obsessed with slowing down, of stepping back, disappearing at a certain age. But I think we've got that script absolutely wrong. What if later life could be all about reinvention or continuing what you love most, about more curiosity, more movement and more meaning? Our guest today is someone who's lived that with a bit of panache and substance and irreverence and more than a little adventure. Kate Turkington is one of South Africa's best known broadcasters, travellers, travel writers. She was the first woman to be inducted into the South African MTN Radio Hall of Fame as well. And before I make her blush too much, for over decades has been really one of the most remarkable travel bloggers, vloggers, writers that this country has ever produced. And at 90 is still going strong. Kate,
91.
Welcome. 91
Nearly
still.
92.
Nearly 92. There we go. From Antarctica to Tibet to Rajasthan and the Kalahari. It's great to have you here in my little Parkview studio, Kate.
Oh, after an introduction like that, I can hardly wait to hear myself speak.
Now, what would you say? We've invited you on because we feel you're an inspiration in the way you've lived your life. What would you say has been the core kind of golden thread running through a life as a broadcaster and a writer and a mother and
a golden thread? Just following my... Look, when you're nearly 92, I'm only 8 years short of a century. When you're my age, you actually know what you're good at and you're not frightened to say so. And you also know what you're bad at and you're not frightened to say so. So hence my answer. I'm super bright. I always have been. And I have followed my mind. I've followed my heart. I have never, ever planned a career of any kind. I have ricocheted from one thing to another all my life. I'll give you an example. We arrived in Johannesburg in 1970 from the 1970, from the UK. My husband joined Anglo-American. Big mistakes. He was feckless and Irish, and it didn't last, and it was great. But so I came here directly from the BBC thinking, I'll go and work at the SABC. So I walked into the SABC. This 1970. I walked straight out again. There was no way I was going to work there. So
too verkrampt.
I had a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a baby of one, Tara Turkington. And I wrote to Wits and I said, look, here I am. I got a first class honours degree, blah, blah, blah. I'll come and teach English at your university. So handwritten letter, didn't hear a thing. So I was bathing Tara in our little rented house in Parkview. I had very short shorts on, a very skimpy top and an apron. Came and knocked at the door. There was nobody else in the house. I go to the door. And there was this fairly young guy. I said, who are you? He said, I'm the professor of English at Wits. I said, we've got to come into the bathroom because I'm bathing the baby and I can't leave her on her own. So he came in the bathroom with me. So we got chatting. He said, can you teach Chaucer? I said, of course I can teach Chaucer. Never taught Chaucer in my life. Of course I can teach Chaucer. Anyway, there we are. I ended up as a junior lecturer to begin with at Wits and stayed there for 24 years, also being head of television there, though. So that's what I mean by ricocheting from one thing to another.
And would you credit the ability to be able to ricochet and land on your feet to your superior intellect or just sheer good luck?
Yeah, I know that sounds so arrogant, but it isn't. I could tell you lots of things I'm bad at. I have a superb memory. I have no memory for names. Yesterday, I was out with a grandson. I called him 3 different names before I got to the right name. But so what? Otherwise, no, I think here we are. I've come to something. Take every opportunity, make every opportunity. When I arrived in the UK, I wrote to the, in fact, I think I wrote to ITV. I mean, I was what? 29 years old. I've been teaching, living in Nigeria. Wrote to the ITV and said, anything I can do. So they said, come in for an interview. Went in for an interview. In no time at all, I was co-hosting an evening show called Round About 6. And that's how my broadcasting career started. Then the BBC poached me, actually. I went to World Service, which was fantastic, radio, and then from there to BBC television.
I've got to ask you, and I've got to digress a bit if you'll allow me to, but as someone who formerly worked for the BBC and I'm sure follows current affairs very closely as you do, what did you make of the recent farrago around the censoring of Donald Trump and the lawsuit and just what's happened to the BBC editorially over the last while?
I'm hoping, because I'm one of these people who still has a lot of innocence and faith and trust in people. I think they'll get rid of the sort of wussy elements and they'll come back to where they were. Let me give you another example. When I first started working for World Service, I was sent up to the north of England to interview a shoe factory that now, 1960s was the Cold War, remember? You probably don't remember, you're too young, when we had nothing to do with Russia or whatever. Anyway, I was sent up to do an interview with the head of this factory because they had got a huge contract, multi-million-pound contract with, shock horror, Russia. So off I go in my little car, interviewing him. It was very nice. And he said, would you like some shoes? I said, ooh, yes, please. So I walked out, chose 6 gorgeous pairs of shoes, drove all the way back to London, had a brilliant producer who, looking back on it, was a kind of mentor. The word mentor wasn't invented in the 60s. And I said to her, guess what? I've got 6 pairs of shoes. She said, get in your car, drive back and give them back. That's how there really was no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
Never.
Have you found in your career as a travel writer that you've been offered inducements ever to write a particular kind of story and, we'll fly you first class?
I think my reputation preceded me.
They wouldn't take a chance.
The latest book, because it's just come out, which is Foda's Essential Africa. A lot of people in South Africa don't know Foda's. FODOR. Apostrophe S, one of the biggest travel companies in the world. Just to give you another example, it gets 4 million visits a month to its website in America. So they put out over 300 guidebooks. And I've been with Tara too. My daughter Tara joined too. I've been writing for them for 25, 30 years. So you can ask me anyway about sub-Saharan Africa. And you know, Michael, it's a bit like you and Kim in your professions. What have you got? All you've got is your reputation.
Absolutely.
That is all you've got. Once you besmirch that, or once somehow you get a bad word, that's the end of your career. So it's a very long answer to your question, which is no, I haven't.
So I want to take you a little bit further back to your earliest money memory. And I know money is not what drives Kate Turkington at all. But do you have an early money memory as a child growing up? Was there a lot around? Was it something you discussed around the dinner table?
I was an evacuee at 4. I was sent away with 1.5 million other children from London London with a brown paper label tied onto our coats. What happened at the beginning of World War II? England had a plan to evacuate all the children from London. You've got to remember, America, don't believe Band of Brothers and all that rubbish. America didn't come into the war for about 3 years, only because they were forced in by Pearl Harbor. So Britain and France and Europe fought alone. And I said to my mother, but how could you have sent us away? I was 4, my sister was 6. She said they were dropping leaflets from the sky. The Germans are coming, we're going to be invaded, because Britain really thought they were going to be invaded. Yeah. So it was a superb British operation. In 4 days, they evacuated 1.5 million children from London. We didn't know where we were going. Our parents didn't know where we were going. You were sent to a station. Now, here's an interesting thing. I told you I had a superb memory. I was 4. I can remember being 3. The 6 months I was evacuated, I have absolutely no memory of. And a shrink will call it classic, totally classic blockout.
Yeah.
So for 6 months we were evacuated from England. So there was no money. So my first pocket money, my mother and father then, for the first time in their lives, made money because they worked on the munition lines. They moved out of London to Hertfordshire and worked on munition lines. So for once there was some money. So I'd be given £0.50, which is the equivalent of 25 cents of a rand a week, saved it all up and went to London on the train every month to the theatre. So I saw every production with a very good friend of every great actor and actress of that time, from Laurence Olivier to Vivian Leigh to John Gielgud to you name it. So that was my earliest memory of.
Do you think, given that, I mean, that kind of experience is very difficult for us to comprehend in a world where, yes, we see war in the Middle East and we see war, but it's a much easier world in the main. I know a lot of the woke generation will complain, and I do think there's a certain element of us being desensitized to just how hard life actually can be, and totally spoiled. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. But do you think that built a certain resilience in your ability to be able to ricochet around through your career, land on your feet and say, right,
I don't know. I think genes play a certain part. My maternal grandfather was the captain of a sailing ship. And he used to say, he lived with us during the war when he was old. He used to say, in my day, the ships were made of wood and the men were made of iron. Now they're made of iron. And he literally sailed with Joseph Conrad. He sailed round the world. And finally, he fell off the mast in Canada, broke his leg, and the nearest port, unbelievably, was Buenos Aires. You've got to remember, this is a sailing ship with the sails. And he taught himself English in those 3 months it took. And for some reason, we cannot find out. I have his obituary from the Port of London Authority where he ended up. We have no idea how a Swedish sea captain came to be transferred to the Royal Greenwich Naval Hospital in London. That's what happened. And he was nursed by my grandmother, who was a Yorkshire witch. And that's how. So you asked me about ricocheting and resilience. I think
genetics is,
And just to further that, end of World War II, my mother you couldn't travel. There were no such thing as holidays during 1940 to 45. You couldn't go anywhere. The war on. but she had been brought up in this house on what is now Canary Wharf. It used to be called the Olive Dog. So she remembers the sailing ships coming in. She remembers the house being full of foreign sailors. There were monkeys, parrots. So the idea of travel was there. The end of the war, about 6 months after the end of the war in 1945, never travelled in her life. She bought 6 tins of Nescafe and 6 pairs of nylons, and she said to my father and sister and me, I'm going to France. And off she went to France with her treasures. Can you imagine nylons and coffee in post-war Paris? And she found a little pension there. She didn't speak a word of French, got quite pally with the people, and eventually stayed a month because after 2 weeks they said, we're going on holiday, will you mind the pension for? And I remember her walking back down our road, Forward Avenue, with a little sort of French hat. And that was it. She'd never done anything like that in her life. But it didn't surprise us.
Yeah.
So that's, one of my daughters now who's about to climb Kilimanjaro, we're all the same. If the opportunity, if somebody says to me today, come to Ulaanbaatar, I've always wanted to go in Mongolia, I go.
Yeah.
Like a shot. I think, might be a bit creaky, but you know what? I'll go. I've just come back from Tunisia. Told you. Mentioned that. No. So, yes, resilience perhaps you learn, but it's also inbred, and it's having this...
And role modelled. I mean,
yes.
when you see it and you're exposed to it from a young age, it almost becomes like walking.
It's what people did. Other mothers didn't do it.
Have you ever... And I don't want to go through your entire career, but...
No, we haven't got time, babe.
We'll do the first 48-hour podcast. I'm sure. But have you ever considered slowing down? Because it's the one thing that is remarkable about your story. You don't have to continue...
I really... Look, no is the answer. Because if somebody asked me to do something, I've just been invited to Kafue, where I've never been, in Zambia. So of course I'm going to go. I tell you what I have done. I don't know if this counts as slowing down. Before, I would accept lots of invitations and do stuff. Now I'm much more self-indulgent.
Learning to say no a bit more.
The only reason I'm sitting with you is because of Kim and I want to do it. Otherwise... I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it.
Kim, sorry, and we've kind of left you on the sideline for a second.
I'm smiling.
But it is, it's such an interesting story and study in how to live a very full life, but not necessarily overly structured and planned. As Kate has said, ricocheted.
So it's the complete opposite to the way I live.
Yeah. So but what stands out for you from Kate's story? And I know she's an inspiration to you.
Well, we use her as our inspiration as we say yes to a whole lot of new things that we've never said yes to before. My friend and I actually started this thing this year where every month we have to do something different that we would never have done, and we encourage each other to do it. And I think just for myself personally, and then working with clients, what I do see is with all the structure that we put in our life, and I think it is an element of we think we're controlling our lives.
Yeah.
We're not being on what Kate's on. If I listen to Kate, she's on an adventure. Her life she sees as an adventure. From that first time when she does share her money memory and she says it didn't have an impact, but it did. What did she do when she got her pocket money? She went in. But you also went into the theatre because the theatre was of the highest value system to Kate.
Yes.
And I think this is a lesson for all of us. I mean, I'm sitting here learning this morning. I always learn every time I have a discussion with Kate. I wish I was more like her. But deep down inside myself, there's also this little girl who has worked out that she needed to plan her life, because if she planned her life, she felt like she was more in control. Now, as I've got into my 50s, I realized that control that I have is an illusion. It is a complete illusion. And I am really encouraging myself for my next chapter to have a little bit more of what Kate's got, where I will see an opportunity and take it. And I plan to. I mean, her daughter, Tara, is going to go and climb Kilimanjaro. I was in the Amazon with her in April, because that for me will make this next chapter way more exciting. And I think maybe just for our listeners, you might not be Kate and you might not be me, because we probably sit on quite different extremes. But at the same time, for yourself, potentially just thinking, what could you be saying yes to, as opposed to, you know what I mean, just the responsibilities that we're doing and that kind of stereotype that we've got of going into retirement, that stereotype of midlife. You know, just, I always call it, let's recalibrate it, relook at it. You know, we don't have to stick to what we've been doing just because we've been doing it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of my grandsons, the one who's just become a father. He got married 2 years ago, did his MBA, said to himself, I'm going to do an MBA and we can start having children. He's the absolute opposite of me. Mind you, his father's a lawyer, so say no more. But he's got his life planned out, and I can remember him sitting, hope he doesn't hear this because he's in finance. I can remember him sitting when they first got engaged, he and his gorgeous wife, saying they're going to have 3 children and they're going to do this. And I'm sitting there, keep your mouth shut, Kate, keep your mouth shut, thinking life happens, baby. Life happens.
Yeah.
If you... surely if you plan your life to such a degree and then the plans don't work out,
You're setting yourself
you
up.
just go to plan B, Kim.
Yeah.
So for me, the goal setting, and I do a lot of goal setting with people in general, because what I have seen is that people have so many regrets later in life that they end up living the plans that other people had for them as opposed to the plans that they had for themselves. So a question I always ask people is, what will their next chapter look like if it turns out well? And Kate, so many people don't know what that is. Now, if they were like you and they were adventurous and they were going off and trying new things and doing new things, I could sit here and go, your way is the only way to do it. But unfortunately, what I do see is more common than the discussion we're sitting having today is people that make their worlds too small, people who don't see it as an adventure. They see all this responsibility, and responsibility is big, and they've got a world on their shoulders. So I think if I could say that there's kind of this balance between you and I mean, Kate did ask me, Kim, why would you ask me to be on a money program when I don't have money? I don't do money. I don't do. And, you know, I actually got Kate a few years ago. She came and spoke to the group of clients, and we had a room full of 100 of our clients. And she's, you know, she opened with, I don't do money, and I don't know why Kim's actually got me here. But I think it's more that life that you've got and that will, that resilience, that sense of adventure and curiosity that I'm just hoping will have a little bit of a contagious energy.
Yeah.
And I have quoted the Dalai Lama before, and I've been lucky enough to interview him twice, once with 2 other people, once with more people. And as he said, the past is gone. You learn from it, but it's gone. The future never comes. Carpe diem. He didn't say carpe diem. She doesn't speak Latin. Carpe diem. Seize the day and do your best in the moment.
It's just the most
beautiful. The past is gone. The future never comes. Where are you? Where are we now? We're in the present.
In the moment.
Make the most of it.
Yeah.
You might, as I always say, I might trip over a doorstep and break my neck on the way out. So what? I can't control it.
So interesting. Dr. Kate Turkington, who we had on the show, who helps people practice more mindful, conscious being in the moment type of living.
Totally.
She stressed that not nearly as articulately as you reference the Dalai Lama, but in that context of being overwhelmed by responsibility, future, past context, and not being able to just live in the moment.
To take joy. I mean, just the sunshine today and the fact it's a beautiful day. Yesterday, I was standing at my door. I'm a birder. I've been president of BirdLife Santon for about 15 years. I'm not a twitcher. I was standing at my door and I have a little courtyard and a fiscal shrike. You may not know the bird. It's a little bird the size of a sparrow, but it's a fierce little bird. So I'm just standing there, standing in the sunshine. This bird swoops down into my courtyard, stabs a baby lizard, flies up onto the wall, juggles it about and swallows it. I immediately WhatsApped all my family because we all love birds. Now, that was the highlight. When I do my 5 questions at night, I always ask myself 5 questions. That was my highlight of the day, seeing that little bird in action.
Tell me a little bit more about is that a daily habit, a ritual, routine?
I have 5 questions. First of all, what am I grateful for? And sometimes it's same old, because I have wonderful family, wonderful friends, but it might be something special. Yesterday, one of my family went through quite a serious operation. She came through fine. That was my highlight yesterday.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Question number 3 is, what have I learned? So it might be, I've just finished rereading Hannibal, a historical novel. I'd forgotten so much Roman history. Was I kind? Was I kind to somebody today? Yes, I was. And finally, when did you feel most alive? Now, sometimes there isn't a high, there's always gratitude, but sometimes there isn't a highlight. Learning is always there. One learns.
No.
I can't remember what wise philosopher said. It might have been Plato. The older you get, the more you realize, the more you know. You realise how little
you know.
You know.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way to... I tap myself on the shoulder and say, well done, body, because it's a pretty good, nimble body for...
Well, as you sit here in your jeans looking very...
Well done, body. Then I do my 5 questions. Then I go into what the Buddhists call monkey brain. My brain goes all over the place thinking of all sorts of things. But I know when at the end I was doing a toast to Jonathan Ball, the publishing company who've been in business for 50 years and have become, as I said, a cultural institution.
Oh, absolutely.
But I was telling stories of authors I've been with and just reminding me there of sometimes there's a highlight. I once went to an Irish island with Nobel laureate. He was Nobel winner, prize winner, Seamus Heaney, the Irish poet. And we went to, not the Lake Isle of Innisfree, but a Lake Isle in County Antrim with another poet called Michael Wood. And we drank a lot of Bushmills whiskey. And Seamus Heaney composed, you must read his poetry, it's wonderful, easy to read, poignant, brilliant. So I became a Nobel Prize winner. He composed this poem as the stars were coming up. It was a nice Irish evening. We drank more bush whiskey. He composed this perfect 4-line poem. When we woke up the next morning, not one of us could remember a word.
Sounds like lots of fun also.
But we enjoyed the day. Carpe diem. And the past is gone.
Yeah. No, there is such a powerful lesson in that seemingly simple message. And it really is about being curious, because I think almost, I mean, you say, well, why am I on a financial money podcast? I think curiosity is a financial planning tool. Remaining curious allows you to remain engaged. It helps you to set goals if you want to, if something piques your interest. It gives you a bit of structure, but also in a way that isn't overly controlling. And I think that's why I like curiosity, Kim. It's almost a balance between the yin and the yang that you and Kate represent. Just as we wrap up, what is the parting shot for listeners who've just had a little glimpse into Kate Turkington's life and story?
Well, I think her 5 questions are great. I think it's definitely something to encourage all of us to think about when in the evening. I love it, thanking your body. I mean, thanking your body for getting you through the day. And then, from a point of view of what I get from Kate is maybe I could just take, and the listeners can take, just that little bit more sense of adventure. Just when we are looking at different opportunities, just do it.
Just do it.
I love it. We'll leave it there. I think it's a great way to end. I was reading Hemingway's A Movable Feast in the Luxembourg Gardens, and I just happened to come across it in this cute little French bookstore that had a tiny little English section, and we had other plans on for the day, and I thought, well, let's do it. There we go, Kate. I'm gonna pass that over to you.
It's wonderful.
But he recounts his early years as a struggling writer. If he ever struggled really to write, I don't believe it.
I've been to his house in Cuba where he watched other gardeners bathed naked in his pool, and his boat that he went deep sea fishing. There was his chair, his rods, and a bar with his bottles of rum. Yeah. Exactly as it said. He was quite a badass, but he wrote beautifully.
Really did. He stripped everything down to its essence, but he lived. He lived in the moment, and I think that is the overriding lesson for me in those 5 questions. Fantastic. Kate Turkington, it has been a real pleasure having you on Life Chapters Money Choices. Thanks so much for your time and for your inspiring journey and story. Kim, as always, great having you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I've learned lots today.
And that's when I go to bed tonight, what I'm going to be very grateful for as well when I ask myself those 5 questions. Well, that's where we'll leave it for this week. Remember to like, subscribe and share. We'll bring you more insights on Life Chapters Money Choices in the fortnight. Take care.